How many did you go through, and do you still enjoy French?
I will always enjoy French. Without a doubt. As far as cigars are concerned, I was a cigar smoker when we were working on the creation of the show. And so I decided to incorporate the cigar into it because it helped I don't want to get into acting technique now, but there's something that a great actor named Michael Chekhov came up with, this idea of the psychological gesture. And I used that in the creation of Gomez, and the idea that Gomez was a sort of uplifting, everything is wonderful. You know, that was the foundation of Gomez. And the cigar helped that movement, you see. So I said, I'm going to use the cigar. So I used the cigar. And in the course of filming that show, I lit hundreds of cigars. In fact, one day, I lit 50 cigars. And my mouth felt like, you know, that proverbial birdcage. I was through it. And so when the show ended, that was the last time I smoked cigars. So, to the contrary, I was a cigar smoker. I did the show, and I was not a cigar smoker. It's the other way around usually, but that's what happened. My answer to that is no. I used to do that, though. Yeah, when somebody saying, stand on your head, and I say, okay, you know, and I'd stand on my head. But, you know, a little water has gone under the bridge since then. What was the first part of that question? Oh, and Monsters in the House Valley. It's a long story because I was aware that the Monsters had been written a few years before. Yeah, by a friend and sometimes co-writer with a writing partner of mine. And I remember him telling me about the show. Chris Hayward and Alan Burns, who later, you know, did the Mary Tyler Moore show. And it was patterned after the Charles Addams ideas, you know, and their leading woman was, looked just like Morticia in the pilot film they did. But they got worried about, because at roughly the same time, the Addams Family was being developed, you know, with Charles Addams, okay. And so they got worried that there might be a lawsuit, I think, and they fired Joni Marshall, who was doing the wife in the show, and hired Yvonne DiCarlo. And noticed that she was wearing white and had a white streak in her hair. You know, they were, you see, Universal owned all the Monsters, you know, so those movies had all been Universal films, I think. And so they could use them, Wolfman, all that stuff with impunity, you know, no legal problem. But they couldn't invade Charles Addams' arena, so that it had to be different. To the best of my, I was never really much aware of the Monsters when we were on. We came on the same year. I wasn't really, I had friends working on the show, but I wasn't, you know, I was busy with the Addams Family and never gave the Monsters a thought, and I'm not sure they thought much about us. I mean, the shows were quite different and done roughly the same time. And so I think there was a natural coupling of them because these were two families and there were unusual people. And really, truly, it all emanated the ideas that Charles Addams had in his panels. But Okay, Eureka is something Poe wrote, Edgar Allan Poe. He regarded it as his masterwork. He called it a prose poem. I don't know how many pages it is, about 100 pages, I guess. Does anybody know? I think it's about 100 pages, but it's a very difficult read. It's hard to understand unless you take a little time to figure out what he's getting at. But it's also one of the most amazing documents because in it, he anticipates some of the theories of modern science. He gives us a reason for darkness at night, given an infinite number of stars. Why don't we have night? You know, why don't we see them all? There's a book published by Harvard University Press about darkness at night, which devotes a chapter to Poe, saying he didn't do the math connected with it, but he came up with a valid answer for this particular thing. But there's so much. Poe tied his idea of the universe into an overall philosophy that was tremendously powerful and I found mightily inspiring. It's a tough read, but if you really get into it, there are a lot of answers for fundamental questions that we might have. I tried to refine parts of it and simplify them and make them understandable in the Poe play, even though I was not the original author of the Poe play. I did a lot of writing on it, and this was one thing that I really got into. And so I think I wasn't happy with the production entirely until we got Eureka so that it was one of the most important things in the show instead of something the audience had to wait for it to end so they could enjoy the rest of the show. It finally happened, that it became part of the climax of the show. It Poe's revelations, his understanding of life. One human life is worth the universe. Very heavy question, but Poe's incredible respect for the dignity of human life and how important it is implicit in this. He puts together a very, I was going to say logical argument, but he actually attacks the logic of Aristotle, the logic of Bacon in this essay, and stresses the importance of intuition, points out that there are certain things about life that we cannot understand through logic, whether it's one kind of logic or another. We have to rely on other things like intuition and instinct and so on. And the revelations from this are really astounding. And that's what fascinated me about Eureka. Eureka means, I found it! And that's why he called it Eureka. and what movie is this? Is this about Joe Dante's movie?
No, this is, I'm not sure if it's the movie, but it's a Batman and Robin episode.
I was doing the janitor.
Yeah, as the Riddler, you were doing some...
Yeah, I was a street cleaner.
Yes, and you were whistling a song, and that stuck with me. Every time I vacuum, that's not what I'm singing.
Was it something from Il Trovatore? I don't know. I have no idea what it was. I'll have to watch that episode. And
I'll get back to you on that.
Um, I can't think of one right now. I'm sure there were some dogs along the way, but if I did a dog, it was to, you know, help buy diapers for a kid or something. So a diaper can do anything, really. I mean, you got to wash your car, you know, a diaper is the best thing. Clean the windshield, they do a great job. And it's, you know, it's good for kids' poop too. And I can tell you ways to wash that diaper out before you put it in the diaper bag for the, because he used to send away the dirty diapers and they'd wash them and send them back to you. That diaper got used many, many times, of course. And you don't want to know more about it.
I wondered, at the end of that movie, you rode off in a wedding dress, and I wondered, did you ever go straight and get married?
Never. No, what was the final end of Evil Roy?
You were riding a wedding.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, how do you think that progressed? Did you ever go straight?
I think it should be a new show about what happened to Roy Slade wearing that dress.
So, sorry, there's a lot of this is
Yeah.
us also. Did you ever see the Adams Family musical they just did?
Yes, I saw that. Yes. That was hard to avoid. I was going to try, but I knew the producer, and he wanted me to see it. But the New York Alumni Association of Johns Hopkins asked me if I would go and be their guest. They wanted me to speak to the Alumni Association, so I did that. They smuggled me in, but somehow they found out that I was there. And then the producer came over and says, "What are you doing here? This was a preview. I wanted you to come to the opening night." And he says, "Will you come?" I said, "Yeah." But then one of my students had a dress rehearsal, and I had to stay there for that. So I did see it. Honestly, it didn't have much to do with the Addams Family or with Charles Addams cartoons, but it was an amusing evening. I